So I'm sorry about that, but my video got cut off. Basically, we were looking at how to find the whole of the percent. Our whole should have been 50, and we were looking for around 85%. We know that we were halfway between 40 and 45, and I was explaining how to find the middle point. Remember, we have to basically add the two numbers. Sorry, this is 40 and 40. I should say 40 and 45. So we should add the two numbers together, which should be 85, and then we need to divide it by 2. 85 divided by 2, if you do the math, should be 42, but then because 2 times 2 is 4, and we don't believe in remainders in middle school, we're going to add 2 decimals and keep going. And that's how we should have gotten 42 and a half. And so basically what that's telling us is that 85% of 50 is equal to 42 and a half. And that's how you would solve a problem like this. That was just an example so that you can find the part when given the whole and the percent, but I thought you'd like to know that. The next question we have is basically that there are 450 students in a school and 270 of them have phones. And so the first thing we need to look at is it says what percent of students do not have phones. So this is the ones that have, these are the ones that are total. So I'm going to do some math real quick to figure out how many do not have phones. So I'm going to do 450 minus 270. And that should be 180. So I'm focusing on how many do not have phones. So I'm focusing on that 180 out of 450. So now we can do this two ways. We can either do it the percent bar way, or we can do it with fraction to decimals. So if you remember how to change from fraction to decimal, from fraction to percent, we had to change it from decimal to percent. So before I do that, I'm going to simplify because it's a really big number. I know I can divide by 10 because they both end in zeros, and now I have 18 over 45. Now I'm going to try to divide by maybe 9. So 8 divided by 9 is 2, and 45 divided by 9 is 5. And so that's how I got this really big fraction to be this, because this is a lot more easy. This is a lot easier to divide and stuff like that. So let's divide. Numerator on the inside, denominator on the outside. 5 goes into 2, can't. But 5 goes into 20 4 times. And then change from decimal to percent. All I need to do is multiply by my decimal. And then move it one place to the left, because that's how many numbers are in decimal. And that's how I should get 40% as my answer. That's one way to do it. The other way is to do it as a percent bar. I know my total was 450, which is 100%. Here, let me move this over just a bit. I know that this is 0%. And I still need to chop it up into equal parts. It's going to split up into 10 equal parts. So I need to figure out how much to count by. So 450 divided by 10 should be 45. So if I have 45 and then 90, and then 45 plus 45 is 135. If I add 45 again, it should be 180. And then 225, 270, 315, plus 45, 360, one more, and then 405. I'm going to do it sideways so I can fit it in, but you understand what I'm trying to do. This is 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%, 60%, 70%, 80%, and 90%. And so I know that I'm looking for how many kids that did not have phones, that do not have, oh, you can't see that. The number that do not have phones. And if you remember what that was, it should have been $180 kids. So what I'm going to do is follow my total all the way to 180 and just follow it down until I get 40%. That's how I know 40% of my students, 40% of my students do not have phones. So the answer to number 1, the answer to that question either way should have been 40%. Okay, now we're going to talk about Adam and how he wants to pay back his sister 6%. So the first way I'm going to do it is by doing it the fraction way. So I know I have 16%, which is 16 over 100, and I know that he received $150, dollars. And so the first thing I would do is change this to be a decimal. So if I divided this, if I divided this by 100, I know I should get 1600ths. Then I multiply 1600ths by 150. Because that's how much that we're taking out. I move my decimal over 2 places to the left. And so I know that 16% of $150 is $24. And so Adam gave his sister $24. That's a multiplication way of doing this. Honestly, that's the way I would recommend, because 16% is not a very pretty number per se, and so it might be a little bit more difficult to cut up into equal pieces. Let's try to see if I can do it. So we know that we have 0 here, and then we have $150 here, and he needs to pay back his sister 16%. And so I'm going to put a 0 here, and then the 100% here, and chop it up into, and let's still try 10 equal pieces. So I know that if you do 150 divided by 10, it's going to be 15. And so you have 15, 30, 45, 60, 75, 90, 105, 120, and last but not least, 135. And then you also have your percents down here, just like this. We know 16% is going to be somewhere between 15 and 30. And so we can't really find the exact, point. And so what I'm going to do is basically blow this up to make it larger. What I mean by that is I'm going to make a secondary bar chart and have this be 10% and this be 20%. And then again, chop it up into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pieces. I know that this is 15, and I know that this is 30. The difference between 15 and 30 is 15. I need to divide that into 10 pieces, which is 1 1/2. So I'm going to do 15 plus, wait, sorry. First, I'm probably going to do these underneath, which is 11%, 12%, 13%, 14%, 15%, and 16%, 17%, 18%, and 19%. If you don't understand this, then please just focus on the first part. But then I'm going to add this basically every time by 1.5. So this would be 16.5. This would be 18 right here, 12%. And then we have 19.5. And then we have 21. We have 22.5. Then we have 24. And then we have 26.5. And then we have 27. And then we have 28.5. And so if you even followed through all of that, you would see that 16% of that entire amount is $24. And so this is a much more complicated way. If I were you, I would just kind of focus on the division part. But either way, you should have gotten $24 as your answer.